She thought she was in control. For years, she decided who belonged and who didn't, turning people away with a smile that hid something far darker. But when one black family walked into the restaurant that night, she made a choice that would unravel her world. She didn't know their names, she didn't know their story, and she certainly didn't know the power they carried. By the time the truth came crashing down, it was too late. What happens when the people you look down on turn out to own everything you tried to keep from them? She thought she was shutting them out, but she was only locking herself into a nightmare she couldn't escape. Amanda had been working at the restaurant for nearly a decade. To her, it wasn't just a job, it was her stage. Every evening she stood at the entrance deciding who stepped into that polished world of white tablecloths and whispered conversations. She told herself it was about protecting the atmosphere, keeping the place exclusive. The truth was harder to name. Guests she approved walked past with ease. Guests she doubted never made it to a seat, and Amanda never questioned it. That night began like so many others. The regulars drifted in, dressed in designer suits and glittering jewelry. Amanda straightened the menus, her mind already judging the next arrivals before they even touched the door. She thought she had everything under control. But then the door opened, and with it walked the family that would change everything. She thought it was just another decision, but this one would shatter the life she thought she knew. The restaurant was calm that afternoon, the kind of lull Amanda loved. Quiet chatter, the clink of wine glasses, and the illusion of control. She stood tall at the hostess stand when the door opened. A family stepped in. A black man in a tailored suit, a woman in a silk blouse, and two children dressed as if they were heading to something important. Their presence was effortless, dignified, and confident. But Amanda's eyes narrowed. Something inside her dismissed them instantly. Her smile was tight, her voice practiced. "I'm sorry. We're fully booked tonight." It wasn't true. Several tables sat empty, waiting for guests who would never come. The man glanced around, his eyes resting on the vacant booths. He didn't argue. He didn't flinch. He simply said, "That's strange." "There are plenty of empty tables." His calmness rattled her. Amanda's grip on the stand tightened, her chest bracing for the pushback she knew was coming. But this wasn't just about dinner. This was about something deeper, unspoken. She stood her ground. "They're reserved," she said. Another lie. The wife's lips pressed together. The children watched in silence, waiting for their father's response. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't plead. He simply exhaled, measured and controlled, before replying, "We'll wait." Amanda didn't blink. "I'm afraid there won't be any openings tonight." Her words sliced the air. This time, the silence hung heavier. The family exchanged glances, the son's jaw tightening, the daughter clutching her handbag a little closer. And then came the question Amanda dreaded. "May we speak with the manager?" Her smile faltered for the briefest second. The manager wasn't available, at least not to them. She gave her final dismissal, crisp and decisive. And just like that, the family turned toward the exit. They didn't make a scene. They didn't argue. Only the youngest, the little girl, looked back once before the door closed behind them. Amanda thought it was over. She thought she had protected the exclusivity she held so dear. But moments later, her manager stormed out from the back, his face pale, his voice sharp with panic. "Where are they?" He wasn't asking about reservations. He wasn't asking about VIPs. He was asking about that family. Amanda's chest tightened. Something in his tone, something close to fear, unraveled her confidence. She stammered, "They left." The manager cursed under his breath, bolting for the door as if chasing ghosts. Through the glass, Amanda saw him waving, desperate, calling after the family she had just dismissed. The sight made her stomach churn. Why would he care so much? And then she saw it. The family stopped. The man turned slightly, calm as ever, listening to the frantic words spilling from the manager's mouth. With a single nod, he walked back toward the restaurant. His wife followed, children close at her side. They weren't just guests anymore, they were something more, something Amanda hadn't seen coming. The air inside shifted when they re-entered. Conversations dimmed, forks froze mid-air, and even the staff stood taller, sensing a weight in the atmosphere. Amanda's hands trembled as the manager guided the family not just to any table, but to the table. The one reserved for owners, for royalty, for the untouchable few. Amanda's world tilted. She had thought she was shutting them out. In reality, she had just locked herself into the moment that would expose everything. What happened next would shatter her sense of control and reveal the truth she never imagined. Amanda's breath caught as the manager pulled out the VIP booth for the family she had just turned away. The man sat calmly, his presence filling the room without a word. His wife followed, her grace unshaken, their children sliding into their seats with quiet dignity. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Then the man turned his gaze toward Amanda. His eyes weren't angry. They weren't even surprised. They were steady, piercing, as if he had seen this scene play out 100 times before. "What's your name?" he asked. The question sliced through the silence like glass. Amanda's throat tightened. The manager stammered to answer for her, but the man raised a hand. He wanted to hear it from her. With trembling lips, she whispered, "Amanda." He leaned back, his voice low but sharp enough to cut the room in half. "Tell me, Amanda, what made you decide my family didn't belong here?" Every sound in the restaurant vanished. Forks froze. Conversations died. Eyes turned toward her, waiting for her response. But she had none. The truth was too ugly to say aloud, that she had judged them before they had spoken a word. That in her mind, exclusivity had always meant whiteness. Her silence spoke louder than any excuse. And then he delivered the blow. "We built this place. We own this restaurant. And still, you thought we weren't good enough to sit at our own table." Amanda's knees weakened. The ground seemed to vanish beneath her feet. Years of control, years of authority, vanished in an instant. She wasn't the gatekeeper anymore, she was the example. The man's wife leaned forward, her voice calm but devastating. "Is this how you treat all your guests?" Amanda's face burned as shame wrapped around her like chains. This wasn't just a mistake. This was who she had chosen to be. And now the truth was out for everyone to see. Her world had just collapsed in front of the very people she had once believed she controlled. But the fallout, the consequences of that choice, was only just beginning. Amanda stepped outside into the night air, her chest hollow, her legs unsteady. The glittering streets of Beverly Hills looked the same as always, but nothing felt familiar anymore. For years, she had believed she was the one in control, deciding who belonged, who didn't, and who was quietly shown the door. But in that moment, she saw herself for what she really was, not a gatekeeper, but a barrier. A living reminder of how prejudice hides behind a smile, behind a lie about reservations, behind the illusion of exclusivity. The family she tried to push away didn't have to shout to make their point. They didn't need anger to show their power. Their dignity did all the work. And Amanda realized, too late, that the real lesson wasn't about who owned the restaurant. It was about who owned their humanity from the very beginning. Because this wasn't just about one family being denied a table. It was about centuries of doors closed, opportunities denied, and dignity stripped away, all for the crime of simply existing in spaces designed to exclude them. Amanda's humiliation was sharp, but it was nothing compared to the daily reality so many face, unseen and unspoken. And that's the truth we can't ignore. Racism doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers at a hostess stand. Sometimes it hides in policy. Sometimes it looks like silence when someone should have spoken up. So the question remains, how many more families must endure these quiet humiliations before the world finally changes? And more importantly, when we're the ones holding the door, will we choose to shut it or open it?